Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would first off like to begin by asking, who does not have a fond memory of swimming in a lake, jumping into the ocean, or even having a nice camping trip with the family? It's very tender, and I think that speaks a lot about Canadian culture and who we are as a people. But what is a shame is that all this, there's a chance that it can go away. Because as we know, the environment is in danger. And it's not just a danger for Canada. It is a danger for the whole world. Mr. Speaker, Canada must take action for the environment and absolutely must, impose sanctions and measures in order to help protect the environment, and something that is so dear not just for Canadians, but all of us around the world. Mr. Speaker, today the Government of Canada is proposing a minimal price on carbon. This minimal price will be applicable to all provinces and territories, regardless of the current system in place. For example, if one province has a current cap-and-trade system and another province has a carbon tax, the government proposes to impose a minimal price on carbon, for example, $30 per ton of emissions. What this will do, Mr. Speaker, is that we are putting our foot down because we must take action. Today, we will bring forth 4 arguments explaining why this motion must imperatively pass. An environmental argument, a political argument, an economic argument, and finally a social argument that will be brought forward by our second member of Parliament today. I would like to begin with our environmental argument. Mr. Speaker, studies have shown that if the overall temperature, average temperature of the planet increases by 2 degrees, we're at the point of no return. And Mr. Speaker, as we all know, the temperatures are climbing exponentially, which means that it's becoming closer and closer, and we are getting closer and closer every year to this point of no return. Mr. Speaker, we must take action, and that is why we must take action now, because the global temperature is warming up so fast. We do not have the choice but to take action. Our second argument is a political argument. Mr. Speaker, as we all know, in November 2015, Canada has made the decision to sign the Paris Accord. What is this treaty? What is this accord? It is an accord to help us reduce our carbon emissions. And Canada has to respect this international treaty. And because we have signed it, and we have made an agreement with the whole world, because as I've stated at the beginning, Mr. Speaker, this is a global problem. It is not just a problem that hits home to us, but it's a problem that hits home to everybody. And Canada must take action on a global scale and to become eventually leaders. And that's why everyone came and signed and decided to agree on reducing their carbon emissions. So, Mr. Speaker, Canada has an obligation towards the Paris Accord in order to reduce our emission, and this motion will help reduce our emissions. Because of this disincentive, companies will be less reluctant to pollute uselessly. Our third argument is an economic argument, that when we establish a carbon price, we are getting extra revenue for the government. Now, I would like to take a moment and paint a picture of an ideal way to invest this revenue. For example, the government gets extra revenue from carbon pricing, whether it be cap and trade or a carbon tax system. What happens if the government decides to reinvest in green technology and green innovation? What will end up happening is that we are stimulating an industry. We are stimulating economic growth within the country, because people will most likely innovate and will want to innovate and create greener technology and greener ways to reduce pollution. Not only that, but we will be a leader in environment. And because we will become a leader, we will inspire other countries to do the same and to move forward to help protect the globe and all of its citizens, and not just the Canadian citizens. And finally, if Canadians decide to invest in greener technology and decide to help develop this industry, what will end up happening is that we'll create jobs, and job creation is excellent for the Canadian economy, as we all know. Without jobs, Mr. Speaker, people won't have money to spend on stuff. It's basic, it's elementary economics. And this will help create jobs, thus increasing Canada's economic potential. Mr. Speaker, I cannot stress enough on why it is so important to move forward with this motion. Not only for the sake of Canadians, not only for the sake of swimming in a river, jumping into the ocean, but People's homes all around the planet could be destroyed because of rising seas, and the rising seas are due because of rising temperatures and the melting of the polar ice caps. Mr. Speaker, it is imperative that this motion must pass. Thank you very much.
Monsieur le Président, chers membres du jury, cher public et chers collègues au gouvernement, 2 c'est la proportion des émissions globales de gaz à effet de serre qui sont émises par le Canada. Et moins de 30 c'est la proportion de ce 2 que le projet que le gouvernement semble pas tout à fait très bien connaître parce qu'il est beaucoup plus précisément décrit, comme je vais vous le dire. C'est l'objectif de diminution de ces 2 d'ici 2030. Pendant ce temps, on sait déjà que la Chine et l'Inde vont continuer à augmenter avec des proportions très, très grandes leurs émissions pendant toutes ces années. Aujourd'hui, je vais montrer comment le plan du gouvernement est chimérique et je vais vous présenter d'abord 2 arguments économiques. Un par rapport au fait qu'on devrait se concentrer sur la demande, sur la demande et non sur l'offre. Le deuxième, sur le déficit de balance commerciale intense que le projet du gouvernement va poser. Ensuite, mes collègues nous parleront de l'impact grave sur notre cher système bancaire canadien et on parlera ensuite de l'équilibre possible entre l'économie et l'environnement et des pistes de solutions pour la deuxième représentante de l'opposition. Donc, pourquoi est-ce que le projet du gouvernement pénalise la demande? Et c'est bien qu'on voit très bien que le projet va affecter d'abord et avant tout les pétrolières canadiennes. Ces pétrolières canadiennes, on vous le rappelle, souffrent déjà du contexte énergétique mondial actuel et ce pétrole est exporté. Les compagnies canadiennes vont tout simplement choisir pour opter pour un pétrole moins cher, un pétrole d'origine étrangère, et c'est lui qui va être utilisé au Canada. Ce n'est pas idéal. Aussi, c'est important de comprendre que le Canada, oui, a une plus grande émission de gaz à effet de serre par habitant que la moyenne mondiale, mais c'est pour des raisons territoriales et climatiques. Il fait froid au Canada et nous sommes un grand pays. Et donc, les Canadiens ont besoin de dépenser plus en pétrole pour se chauffer et pour le transport. Pour toutes ces raisons, il faut un investissement constructif et ambitieux sur la demande et non sur l'offre, parce que l'offre va, le programme du gouvernement va seulement handicaper notre économie. De façon encore plus importante, il faut comprendre que c'est la responsabilité du gouvernement de s'occuper de l'économie canadienne et que, sur un principe très simple de cause et d'effet, le fait d'augmenter le coût de la production des biens canadiens par cette taxe créera tout simplement le fait que la facture sera passée aux consommateurs canadiens et que les consommateurs canadiens vont de plus en plus opter pour des produits étrangers. Ça va encore plus affecter notre milieu manufacturier déjà très fragile, ça va affecter notre emploi et ça va encore plus affaiblir notre dollar qui souffre déjà et vers un cercle vicieux économique très dangereux. Je veux maintenant revenir sur les arguments qui ont été amenés par le gouvernement. On nous parle d'abord d'un argument économique. On nous parle du fait... Donc d'abord, on nous parle d'un prix à 30 $ de la tonne. On semble un peu mêlé au côté du gouvernement parce qu'aux dernières nouvelles, le projet visait de monter jusqu'à 50 $ la tonne. Un objectif beaucoup plus ambitieux et qui pourrait vraiment handicaper nos objectifs. On parle de défendre l'environnement du Canada. Donc, on va juste résumer ici comment fonctionnent les émissions de gaz à effet de serre. Les émissions de gaz à effet de serre sont globales et ont un impact global. Les émissions de gaz à effet de serre, qu'elles soient faites à Moncton, à Pékin ou à New Delhi, ont le même impact sur la calotte glaciaire canadienne, sur les beaux lacs et rivières canadiennes, où j'aime autant me tremper que mes collègues au gouvernement. On nous parle ensuite de l'argument environnemental. On nous parle d'une initiative globale. Justement, comme ma collègue va le mentionner plus tard, c'est très important que les initiatives environnementales soient justement globales pour qu'elles soient équitables. Ce prix sur le carbone est très difficile à harmoniser avec d'autres programmes mondiaux et c'est la raison pourquoi, selon l'opposition, il ne devrait pas du tout être adopté. Ensuite, sur le point de vue social, encore une fois, le gouvernement ne semble pas être au courant de son plan actuel. Parce que ce qu'on sait sur ce plan-là, c'est qu'il vise à diminuer le fardeau fiscal pour justement équilibrer les revenus gouvernementaux. Mais on sait aussi que dans les portfolios du marché canadien, 15 à 20 de la valeur du marché canadien sont des entreprises d'énergie et que toutes les autres entreprises du pays dépendent également sur ce marché. Et donc, en affectant les emplois par un déficit commercial qui sera exacerbé, ça vous montre à quel point ces entreprises-là vont souffrir, ce qui va amener moins de gens à avoir des salaires compétitifs et moins de taxes à rentrer dans les coffres du gouvernement. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Something we hear coming out of side opposition that we find very concerning is we believe that they have failed to understand the spirit of this motion. What we are trying to do is we are comparing ourselves rather than everyone as a whole. What we need to focus on is the way that we are viewed as a country to others and what steps we are taking forward in order to preserve our environment and to ensure that future generations can grow up in a clean and greener environment. So what I'm going to do for you today is I'm going to refute the points that we've heard so far coming out of side opposition. So one thing we hear coming out of them is this idea of oil companies suffering because of this motion. And yes, this is something that we have to accept. However, even though the oil companies are suffering, we are creating a new industry, a greener industry. And by having this new industry, the oil companies will benefit in the long term. So while we might have to accept some short-term consequences, the long-term benefits will outweigh the short term. The second thing we hear coming out of side opposition is the idea of tax equilibrium. What they fail to recognize is the idea that that is a provincial matter, not a federal matter, and what we are looking at here is a federal issue. I will take the opposition's question.
Is the government not aware that there are other tangible methods that reduce carbon emissions, such as cap-and-trade systems or taxing the consumer directly, that will create these kind of benefits without harming the entire energy industry?
So government is very aware of these issues. However, we feel that this is the best option to incentivize greener use and more green initiatives. So by having this minimum implemented, we are incentivizing oil companies to think green and to pursue greener alternatives. And as the Prime Minister mentioned, what this leads to is a growth in our economy. And what will happen is, in turn, we will see a boost because we are currently running at a deficit. And we need to be able to improve our economy. And we need to ensure that we can be proactive in our choices. So what we need to do is improve our economy by having these greener initiatives, which we will see if we go through with this motion. Another thing we hear coming out of side opposition is this idea that we are harming our dollar, and that, again, brings us back to our economy. There are consequences that we need to accept when implementing any new system, green or not. And what happens is we need to see if this will outweigh our short-term and our long-term benefits. And again, we feel that this does outweigh the short term. And if we can have this, it will make us appear as a stronger nation on the world stage. It'll show that even though we are only making 2% gas emissions, that we are willing to lower that even more. We are trying to show that it doesn't matter how much emissions you're making, we are still willing to take the time and try and change the environment and try to make it greener, make it safer, make it cleaner for everyone that's living in Canada and around the world. So it's for these reasons, Mr. Speaker, that we are proud to propose.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. J'aimerais débuter par élaborer sur ce que le chef de l'opposition a déjà énoncé, c'est-à-dire un troisième argument de nature financière et économique, puis par la suite plonger dans les arguments soulevés par nos adversaires. Présentement, l'économie canadienne, les sables bitumineux, les compagnies pétrolières sont en grand danger. La raison, la chute abrupte des prix de pétrole dans l'année 2014, où les prix sont baissés de 100 $ à peu près un niveau de 50 $ présentement. Le problème, notre marché canadien n'est pas compétitif par rapport au marché étranger. Notre coût de production se situe à 50-55 $ par baril de pétrole. Si on va voir nos voisins américains avec les gaz de schiste, on parle de 15 à 20 $ par baril de pétrole et les sables légers des pays de l'OPEC sont à peu près à 15 $. Le risque, si on impose une taxe supplémentaire, parce que c'est exactement ce que nos adversaires proposent, c'est dans le fond l'inverse d'une subvention, c'est plutôt imposer un coût supplémentaire à la production et non traiter le problème de la demande, c'est que nos entreprises canadiennes soient affectées sans que la consommation au Canada soit diminuée, puisqu'on irait acheter de toute façon ce pétrole ailleurs. Le risque n'est pas seulement pour l'industrie pétrolière, elle est aussi pour les marchés financiers en général. Saviez-vous que 3 à 8 % des prêts des banques canadiennes, qui constituent 35 % de notre économie, sont à des compagnies de pétrole? Si vous savez le modèle d'une banque, vous savez aussi que les banques ont un levier d'à peu près 10 fois. Autrement dit, pour 100 $ d'actifs, 10 $ d'équité, si ces prêts-là de 3 à 8 % venaient à faire défaut, eh bien, nous nous retrouvions avec des banques qui seraient complètement les culottes baissées et peut-être que cette crise pourrait amener une crise systématique financière canadienne, un peu comme nous avons vu aux États-Unis en 2008, causée par le crash du marché immobilier. Est-ce que c'est ce que nous voulons? Nous ne pensons pas. C'est pour cette raison que ma partenaire, plus tard, va élaborer sur un système que nous pensons qui est plus bénéfique, qui s'adresse plus vers la consommation plutôt que taxer directement les entreprises à la production. Sur ce, j'aimerais adresser certains des contre-arguments, certains des arguments lancés par nos adversaires. Nos adversaires ont débuté en reposant sur deux arguments que je joindrai plutôt en un, puisqu'il est pas mal le même. Environnement, la hausse de 2 de 2 degrés Celsius, pardon, de la température moyenne qu'il faut adresser, ainsi que l'accord de Paris qui, selon leur dire, semble imposer ce système de carbone. En fait, l'accord de Paris n'impose aucun système. Il laisse le choix au pays de choisir les moyens pour diminuer ses émissions de gaz à effet de serre. Et l'objectif est de 2030. Présentement, le problème, c'est que le gouvernement propose, c'est d'attaquer notre industrie pétrolière et potentiellement mettre à risque notre entier système financier canadien au moment où il est le plus vulnérable. Ce n'est pas ce que nous voulons. Et d'ailleurs, cela contredit leur point numéro 3, qui est de nature économique, où ils pensent que le réinvestissement pourrait créer des emplois à long terme. Le problème, c'est qu'à défaut de créer des emplois à long terme, nous présentement, coupons beaucoup d'emplois dans les provinces qui dépendent de ça, en Alberta et en Terre-Neuve. Des dizaines de milliers d'Albertains qui sont sur le bord des rues, le chômage qui est dans les doubles chiffres, et tout ça en raison des prix de pétrole qui ont diminué. Si nos adversaires imposent cette taxe supplémentaire, eh bien, ce pourrait constituer la mort de cette industrie et potentiellement un des plus gros crashs au pays. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to start by saying that we on side government are taking a long-term view at this issue. If we don't do this now, there will not be a future for us to do anything else in later. If we don't act now and don't become a leader on the world stage, there will be nothing left for us to enjoy in the future. This is a massive crisis, and as important as the oil is to our economy now, oil is not where the future is heading. We must invest in greener technology and ensure the sustainability of our economy, and government is well aware of its responsibilities towards its economy, but we're also aware of its responsibilities towards its citizens, which is where our fourth argument comes in. Our social argument, Mr. Speaker, is the fact that the government has a responsibility towards the future generations of Canadians, the ones that are come, the children of today, the leaders of tomorrow. We have an ethical responsibility to act now and ensure that we have giving them an environment and a future that they can live in, that they can thrive in, and they can enjoy. Mr. Speaker, status quo has not worked, and it is why we are imposing this minimum price on carbon. We are not imposing a tax, and we're not imposing a specific system as side opposition is seeming. Yes, we are imposing a minimum price, but there are some provinces in the country, like British Columbia, that already have systems in place to curb carbon emissions. They are free to keep that system so long as it effectively meets the price of carbon that we are setting. And as the prices will be starting at $30 a ton and increasing towards $50 a ton and possibly more in the future to try and ensure that we are reaching our targets by 2030. There is no such system that we're trying to impose, and all we are trying to do is force provinces to act.
Some have already taken initiative, and we are simply trying to get the entire country on the same foot. We are trying to take a national objective towards reaching our goals and ensuring that we are keeping a greener tomorrow for all of our generations. So the side opposition seems extremely concerned with the oil and the economy, and so are we, Mr. Speaker. It is without saying that Canadian economy heavily relies on oil. However, oil is not a sustainable resource. It will eventually disappear, and even if that doesn't happen in the next 20 to 30 years, it is happening, and it will happen. We need to diversify our economy, and this is a way of doing it. It's a first step forward, and it's a step that we can take as leaders. It doesn't really matter that we only have 2% of the global emissions. We are becoming a leader on the world stage. Yes, there are other greater polluters, and yes, for global temperatures to fall, they will also have to take sanctions against their own policies, but it needs somebody to step forward first, and that's exactly what we are trying to do. We are trying to be leaders on the world stage, and we are trying to ensure that here at home, we are taking the necessary steps to ensure that our emissions are curbed, to make sure that we are doing what we can to protect the future. Mr. Speaker, we are concerned that the side opposition is overly focused on the economy right now. Yes, as we have said, there's going to be some penalties, and it's not all going to happen perfectly overnight. If it would, we wouldn't be debating this motion in the first place. We need to take a long-term view and ensure that we are looking forward. We need to think of those that are going to come after us, and we need to make the hard decisions now. That is why we are proud to propose this motion. We must impose a motion. We must impose this minimum price on carbon because status quo hasn't worked. And if we don't act now, it'll just be status quo for the next few years, and then it might be too late. We have to make sure that we are taking steps to give our children the future that they deserve. And Mr. Speaker, that is why we are very proud to propose this motion and why it must go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, today we saw a side government come up and tell us what will happen if we don't act now. I'm going to tell you what will happen if we do act now. We see an ultimate unraveling of not only our economy, but the livelihood of thousands of our citizens. I'm going to be proving that to you today through my very thorough rebuttal of side government's points, and then I'm going to rebuild my partner's argument. But before that, I'm going to tell you how we can ensure that we can act now, save the environment, but not have these detrimental impacts that we have talked about. I'm going to talk about the cap-and-trade system that's already in place in places like Quebec, Ontario, Australia, and California. And this cap-and-trade system allows companies to trade CO2 on a free market, which ultimately, instead of hindering companies, allows growing companies the opportunity to continue to grow, instead of this kind of like opposite of a subsidy that their system is trying to perpetuate. We ultimately see that this system that's already in place, already proven to function, will allow for this worldwide harmonization of environmental policies, which will ultimately create the kind of global impact that side opposition is trying to create. We want to save the environment, but we don't want to do it at the expense of not only our economy, but numerous industries. I think we've proven that to you on side opposition. So now I'm going to go into a very thorough refutation of what we heard come out of side government. They told us that they need to take action. They gave us their fond memories of jumping in a pond. But what we say is that side government has tried to paint us as this kind of heartless side that doesn't believe in the environment. But what we do stand for on side opposition is for humanity. We stand for the thousands of Albertans that have lost their jobs due to the bankruptcy of energy companies this year. We stand for the 76% of the unemployed of exploration and production companies that have had to lay off their workers due to this kind of detrimental impact. We see that ultimately what their policy is going to create is not only hurt an already already precarious industry, but ultimately hurt families that are already losing hope. This is not what we stand for on side opposition. We stand for other means in order to create the kind of action that side government wants. Secondly, they talked about the Paris Accord. But what we see is that there are other ways that we can ratify this accord. I talked about in my constructive Secondly, Canada has already threatened to pull out if the US and other countries don't sign. So what we ultimately see is that like the Canadian government stands beside opposition. They're only going to ratify something that's going to create global impact, that's going to ensure that we're all on the same level playing field in terms of our economy and in terms of our environment. And that's why like we ultimately see that the Canadian government already agrees with that. They also talked about renewables and how this is going to create job creation. I just want to tell you, Mr. Speaker, that this is a very flawed argument. This is just an assertion that we've heard come out of every single desk on the other side. We don't understand the link on side opposition. We don't think it's just because like we're unintelligent. It's because they haven't created this kind of link between green technology and this kind of policy. We don't see any kind of subsidies, any kind of investment. We don't see energy companies turning around from drilling to like building solar panels. We don't see this link on side opposition. We don't see how this is going to create this green technology that they're so adamant about. What else did we hear? We heard them talk about this kind of that this will also allow, that they're willing to kill an entire industry for the environment. We saw Babang come up and tell us the exact reason why you can't just kill an industry and be completely okay with it. There are more ramifications than just like, oh, well, we'll just lose all these jobs and like the environment will be okay. No, what we see on side opposition is that this is going to create huge ramifications for our economy as a whole that we are not willing to take. Moreover, I told you that there are already alternatives that are in place and that are working that will ensure that these ramifications do not happen. What we see is that we came out on side opposition with 4 very strong arguments that have not been refuted by the other side. We talked about Canadian producers. We talked about the end consumer and how this does not decrease demand. We talked about the Canadian economy as a whole. And then I came out and told you an alternative. This is why we're very proud to oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would first off like to begin by thanking side opposition for their passion. Although it is quite comforting to see passion talking about the environment, it is clear that there is a lack of understanding and a lack of following by side opposition's part along with this debate. First of all, side opposition says the consequences of the oil industry. Let's talk about that a little bit, Mr. Speaker. As we all know, the oil industry, yes, it is a booming industry in Canada, but it is also extremely volatile. As we can see, international politics has affected the oil price. And because of that, Canada's economy has suffered. By diversing our economy and investing in green technology, we are able to diverse that economy and make our economy less volatile and make our overall economy more stable. Mr. Speaker, side opposition seems to believe that we come up here and say, oh, we're going to create a carbon tax, and we don't even have a model to say how this will create a greener industry. Mr. Speaker, do I need to remind everybody that the first part of our speech was how we can use this carbon pricing, how we can use this method to reinvest into greener technology? Obviously, that is something that side opposition has missed because they are so focused on the oil industry. They are so focused on the short-term vision of what will happen with this motion. Mr. Speaker, this is nonsensical. If there's one thing that we absolutely need to control, is our world. Why, Mr. Speaker? Because without a climate, without homes to live in, there will be no money and there will be no economy. Mr. Speaker, they are pointing fingers and saying, yeah, but look at China, look at India. Mr. Speaker, we cannot control what the other people do. But what is the one thing we can control? It's ourselves, Mr. Speaker. Because we cannot control other people, because we cannot control the policies of other countries, that is why it is imperative, as us, as a country as a whole, that we must take a stance. Mr. Speaker, it is absolutely nonsensical to not move forth with this motion. Today, we have presented forth 4 arguments on why it is absolutely imperative to move forward with this motion. We have stated our environmental argument of saying why we have to act now and why we cannot act later. We have stated our political argument and our political obligations to the Paris Treaty. Yes, the objectives are for 2030, but that doesn't mean we can't stop now and that we can't improve now. We have talked about the economic benefits of reinvesting these extra revenue and the greener technology in order to solidify a stronger Canadian economy. Mr. Speaker, by diversifying our economy, we will be more stable and we will be less dependent on the oil industry. And that, on the long term, is a win. And that, Mr. Speaker, is what we are looking for. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I will go back to our fond memories with our children. Well, those children have fond memories as well. We all, Mr. Speaker, we all have to act on this, and we cannot move it until tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, it is imperative we move forward with this motion. Thank you very much.
Monsieur le Président, chers membres du jury, j'aimerais d'abord commencer par une courte récapitulation des arguments de l'opposition et du gouvernement et de notre opposition à ceux-ci. Une récapitulation qui sera relativement courte car nous n'avons pas réellement entendu de nouveau matériel de ce gouvernement depuis le premier discours du Premier ministre. D'abord, du côté environnemental, on demande encore au gouvernement de nous démontrer qu'ils comprennent le fonctionnement réel des changements climatiques, des émissions globales avec un impact global. Encore une fois, les émissions à Moncton ou à Montréal auront le même effet que ceux à Paris, à Delhi ou à Moscou. Et la réduction marginale des émissions canadiennes n'aura aucun impact sur les lacs et rivières et ruisseaux canadiens. On nous parle ensuite des accords internationaux et comme l'a démontré la deuxième représentante de cette opposition, ils ne fonctionneront seulement que d'une manière harmonisée. Nous nous entendons sur cela avec le gouvernement, mais pour être harmonisés, ils ont besoin de pouvoir s'appliquer à toutes les économies. Et pour cela, ils doivent s'adapter au système économique mondial. Et cela va beaucoup mieux, comme on l'a démontré, avec un système d'échange et de plafonnement. On nous a parlé aussi de l'investissement social, de comment il y aura un réinvestissement de l'argent fait avec cette taxe sur le carbone. On va rappeler encore une fois au gouvernement qu'il va y avoir une mitigation de cette taxe sur le carbone par une réduction du fardeau fiscal des entreprises. Et donc, le résultat sera net pour le gouvernement. Il n'y aura pas plus d'argent. En fait, il va prendre en avoir moins, puisque l'économie canadienne sera négativement touchée. Il va y avoir une perte d'emploi, une perte d'investissement et donc une perte de revenus fiscaux pour le gouvernement. Aujourd'hui, le gouvernement avait le fardeau de nous expliquer comment une réduction marginale des émissions canadiennes aura un impact sur les changements globaux. Ils ont échoué à cette tâche. Aujourd'hui, le gouvernement ne nous a pas expliqué les moyens de mitigation concrets sur le taux de change qui sera durement affecté et sur la perte d'emplois dans le milieu industriel et manufacturier partout au Canada. Encore une fois, un échec du gouvernement. Le gouvernement ne nous a pas expliqué comment les emplois pétroliers vont magiquement se changer en emplois verts et comment, justement, le fardeau fiscal qui sera réduit pour les entreprises va permettre l'investissement social chimérique dont on nous parle. Aujourd'hui, l'opposition vous a parlé de façon constructive. On vous a expliqué pourquoi pénaliser l'offre canadienne plutôt qu'à s'ajuster à la demande va négativement influencer le pays. On vous a parlé d'un déficit très grave sur la balance commerciale du pays. On vous a parlé d'un impact potentiellement catastrophique sur le système bancaire canadien. Et on vous a parlé, enfin, de façon très constructive, de pistes solutions, notamment avec un système de plafonnement et d'échange qui peut être harmonisé globalement. Finalement, aujourd'hui, on veut rappeler la responsabilité du gouvernement. Une responsabilité pour la création d'emplois pour toutes les familles canadiennes et la possibilité d'offrir des alternatives. Aujourd'hui, l'opposition a à cœur le bénéfice du peuple canadien et veut des moyens concrets et non des projets chimériques comme on le propose du côté du gouvernement. Merci beaucoup.